So the good news for Canada on the competition file is that there's no shortage of policy inspiration we can look to from other jurisdictions, both when it comes to academic studies, so the scholastic element, or formal policy work that tends to focus on the digital, but comes with associated recommendations that are starting to be in play. So again, an opportunity for Canada when it comes to policy diffusion and increasingly on digital competition issues, an expectation that we will get closer to policy convergence, right? Historically in Canada, we've hid behind two things, our geography and our population. That's been our rationale for our different approach to competition. But the digital economy doesn't really care about our population or the size of our country or those boundaries. So where should we be looking? Well, right now in the US, in addition to a historic executive order from President Biden that takes an all of government approach to competition, there are five different proposed bills that aim to address digital platforms and their power specifically. There's nothing passed yet, but there's been increasingly, I'll say, aggressive or ambitious enforcement and investigations. The other important thing about the US is that they largely take a federated approach to competition. It's almost surprising that Canada doesn't. Now, Canada has decoupled that consumer protection lens that I pointed to earlier from our competition lens, for better or for worse. But we see more than half of US states also have a state-led competition authority. Some of those pieces of legislation, if you want to look them up, are the American Innovation and Choice Act, the Ending Platform Monopolies Act, and the Platform Competition and Opportunity Act. And one of those bills in particular specifically focuses on the behavior we were looking at earlier called self-preferencing. And it proposes to inherently define self-preferencing as an anti-competitive behavior. It'll be interesting to see where that goes. Now, in the EU Digital Markets Act is currently in its final stages at the time of us recording this. It regulates platforms, purports to regulate platforms that act as gatekeepers in digital markets. Companies with significant impact that are, an important gateway to markets. And the most recent version goes so far as to include virtual assistants, web browsers, and connected TVs. So it's not just about taking on the big tech firms. It's about, looking at areas that are where there are significant barriers to entry. The UK has been undergoing and is potentially just wrapping up consultation on a new regime for competition in digital markets. The Competition and Markets Authority that they have there supports this and has called for increased collaboration with other offices like their Information Commissioner. And that's relevant because many are pointing to the important overlaps between modernizing our privacy regime and where the intersections are with competition in Canada. Australia is also seeking feedback on potential new rules for digital platforms that are dominant, and Germany's passed the Digital Competition Act that gives more power to the Federal Cartel Office to investigate digital market power. Now, these are all examples that focus on the digital aspect, but again, modernizing competition in Canada goes beyond the digital. Right? It's about calling into question the legislative infrastructure that has governed competition in Canada to date and whether it's serving citizens' interest. I mentioned that importance of efficiency. I haven't gone into detailing something called the efficiencies defense in Canada, but there's some good material out there, much of it led by one of my research collaborators, Robin Chabon. Our general approach is, as you're studying the evolution in terms of approaches to digital policy in Canada, our economic goals have shifted. We care now about inclusive growth. We care about building back better. A competition act that's fundamentally obsessed with efficiency over anything else might be incompatible with those goals. And that's another reason we should revisit it and make sure that it's helping us achieve the goals that we have for competition and the kind of country that we want to be.